Hello and welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is the Wednesday edition, and today we are going to be doing a tutorial for long knitted stitches. This was requested by a viewer. So let me show you what the sample is going to look like so you understand what I'm talking about. These are long stitches. And Cricket is drinking out of the water bowl because of course the camera is on. So yes, true to form. Anyway, this is what we are going to learn to do today. It can add texture to your patterns. It also can do you can do other things with long stitches as well. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you how to go about doing that. Now before I get started, I want to show you some examples of long stitches. This is actually a cowl I designed called the little holes on the bias cowl, and these are long stitches right along here, and that is the technique I'm going to show you, except our long stitches are going to be going straight. If you want them to slant like this, I will show you in the tutorial how to do that, but we're going to be doing straight long stitches. But as you can see, this stitch extends several rows up before it's knit a second time. Now this is a sweater. This is called the Cooper Spur Pullover. It is by Janine McCarty, which is the Yarn and You Girl podcast. And these, I don't remember exactly what the name of this stitch is. I keep thinking it was originally called the Indian crosshatch stitch, but I'm not positive, and I don't know that that's really politically correct anymore. So it's a crisscross stitch where the stitches actually kind of do this. Actually, they do more like this, and please ignore the magic marker on my hand. I tend to get attacked by magic markers when I'm at work. I can never open the caps without getting it all over myself. And it's permanent, so it takes a while to wear off. But anyway, this is also created by a group of long stitches that you then take those extended loops and crisscross them. And that forms the X shape that you see here. So now let's get on to how to do it. You don't need any extra supplies, no cable needles, nothing like that. So here I have a sample that I've been working up, and I did it with stockinette and I did it with garter stitch. So you can see here the long stitch right here. It is actually skipping 2 rows before being knitted again. And the same here. It shows up a little bit better on the garter stitch. Now, it's not a simple matter of just slipping a stitch, because it would actually draw your work up, because as you can see, this particular stitch is 3 times the length, because here's 1, 2, 3 stitches. It's 3 times the length of a regular stitch. So let's learn how to do that. I'm going to be showing you with the knit and with the garter stitch. They're both pretty much the same, just difference is how and where you hold the yarn. So right now I'm on the stockinette, so we'll do 3 stitches and then we'll do a long stitch. You're going to go as if you regularly knit, and instead of just bringing 1 time around like this, you're going to bring it a second time around. So you've got a wrap and a half, 2 wraps. So you're going to pull both of those through. So you now have these 2 on there like that. We'll do a couple more regular stitches, and now I'll do another. Let's see, I don't want the long stitch to fall in the same place as the last one, so I'll do a long stitch here. 1 where you normally just bring it between the needles like that. You're going to just wrap it 1 more time. If it's going to be even longer, you would wrap it more times. Most of the time it's just this. And you slide both of those onto the right needle. Now we'll go over to the garter stitch portion of it. And I will do a long stitch here. It's going to be identical on the right side of your work. The only difference shows up is when you're on the back side. So there's one long stitch, and I'll do a couple stitches here and then we'll do another one. And we'll put one right here. So there's my normal wrap and one more time around. Okay, and then I'm going to just do these other 2 stitches. Okay, and when you look at it, you can very clearly see where the double wraps are. You can see them paired together. So now we're going to go to the wrong side of my work. Now remember, this is garter, so this is going to be the knit stitch, which means your yarn is in the back. This is the only point where this is different from doing here. Okay, so let's go to our first long stitch. And it is right here. Now, we don't want the yarn in the back for this because this is the back of your work. If I slip my stitches, I'm going to have this carried across the front of my work, and I don't want that. So if you're doing this in garter stitch, you're just going to move your yarn to the front and you're slipping this stitch. You're not going to knit or purl it. You're just going to slip it, and you just actually need to go into just one or the other of the loops because they're just going to pull off like that. Now you can see already the difference in size. Here's a regular stitch, and see here, it's already, you can see the length. Okay, you're just going to let this yarn just carry across the back, and you're going to move your yarn back again, and then just continue knitting till you come to your next long stitch. And it's right here. So I'm going to bring it to the front, slip. Remember, you're going to slip as if to purl, otherwise your stitches get in the wrong, they get flipped backwards. This one's being tough. It doesn't want to leave the needle. Okay, there we go. And see, the 2 loops are now going down to 1 again, but it is on the right needle and it is elongated. Bring my yarn back around, and you can see I've got 2 more stitches of the garter stitch. Now this side, because it's stockinette, we're in the back already anyway, so I'm not going to have to move my yarn around at all. I am just going to purl across except for where the long stitches are. Here's one here, and I'm just going to slip it purlwise, carry the yarn across, and purl in the next stitch. Here's another one. I'm just going to slide in, slip it off the needle, carry my yarn across. You don't want to pull too tight. You want this carryover to be snug, you know, so it's not like really loopy and loose, but you don't want to pull too tight or it's going to just pucker your work. Okay, now we're back over to the right side. Let's see what it looks like. You can see our long stitch is right here and right here. And over here, you can see the long stitch is here and here. You can already see that it is longer than the stitches next to it. And you can tell by looking at the back, this is our carried over stitch. That kind of tells you how many rows you've done. So we've done 1. We're going to do another one before we connect it all back together again. So again, we are going to knit until we come to our long stitch. We're going to slip as if to purl and continue knitting. We want to make sure our yarn is in the back, because you want all of your carryovers to be on the back where it doesn't show. And here's our other long stitch, so we're going to slip as if to purl. You can hear Cricket click-clacking her little feet across the kitchen. And here's our first slipped stitch. And here's our first long stitch in the garter. And again, I'm going to slip it as if to purl. And knit across, and here's our next long stitch, and I'm going to slip as if to purl. I'm going to turn my work, and you can see those carried over stitches where they've kind of floated across. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're doing the garter, so we're going to have our yarn in the back except for when we come to those long stitches. So we're going to go 1, 2, pull the yarn forward, slip that stitch as if to purl, then move the yarn back again and continue on our way. Here's the other one, you can see it right there. Here you can see our float from before. So I'm going to pull it across like that. Now we're starting the stockinette, so we're going to be purling from here out. So we don't have to worry about moving our yarn forward. There is our first slipped stitch. So we are just going to slide right in there. Here's our second one, slip as if to purl, and continue purling across. Now let's turn it over and take a look. And you can very clearly see our long stitches right here. Just like over here, you can see we have now, if you look at the back, it shows up a little bit more with the garter stitch. You can see we have 2 floats right here and right here where it was carried across the back. So we're now going to rejoin all of this. We are simply going to knit our way across. There we go. Trying to look into a camera while I'm knitting and not watching the knitting itself is interesting. So here we're coming to another of the long stitches right here. And again, you're just knitting across, so you're now just going to knit this stitch the same as you would anything else, and it pretty much just locks it in place. So here's the stockinette, what it looks like. You can see them right here. You can look at the back and you can see the floated stitches. And now I'm going to go across the garter. Here's our first long stitch here, and I'm just going to knit it. There we go. You can even see it showing up a lot better with the garter stitch than it shows with the stockinette. But you can see it's now locked in place. It's the same as any other stitch, and it is carried over top of 2 complete rows. And let's look at the back. And if you look closely, you can see the carryovers here and over here. So this technique, it adds a little texture to your work, or if you want to add slanted stitches like there are in this pattern, what you end up doing is when you come to a slipped stitch, before you knit them together on that last row, it just has you move this particular stitch over a couple, however many the pattern calls for. It just rearranges the order of your stitches, and then you just knit across, and it causes it to slant. So I hope you found this helpful and a fun new technique to try out. If you have liked this video, please give me a thumbs up. It does help the channel. And if you haven't already, please click that little red button and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again on Saturday.